Alright, so the topic of this video that I'm going to do kind of gives it away from the title, but is depression, and mostly concerning my depression. Um, I have been diagnosed major depressive, and also been diagnosed with PTSD, and so kind of a funny combination. Now there are two kinds of depression that I want to talk about, and that is the environmental depression and then the chemical or biological depression. And growing up, I had a household where my parents were both. So my father was a manic depressant, bipolar, undiagnosed, and my mother was depressed due to circumstance. And that was my entire life. And so, just to tell you a little bit about me and what I've gone through, and then tell you how I've overcome that at the end. And there is no overcoming it unless it's just situational. But if it's biological, then you're stuck with that for your entire life, and you've got to find a way to cope, kind of way to deal with it. And this is just my story. So enjoy it. And what I'm going to do is during this, there's going to be two breaks. Well, actually only one break, and then I'm going to end it with one of the songs. But I have two songs I'm going to play for you. I wrote a piece in my high school days that was kind of depressing. And as you know, I've been using the Suno AI music generator. And you plug in lyrics, tell it what kind of music you want it, tell the instruments. You know, it's really a cool program for those that are not musically gifted as far as playing an instrument. It's fantastic. So I will play that piece right when I get to about the high school age, when I'm talking about stuff, and then at the end I'll do the one that I've done recently. So let's get started. We're going to start from the beginning. So growing up, we moved a lot. By the time I was an adult, we had moved 20 times, at least. There might have been a couple more. I don't remember them from when I was a baby. I don't remember the steps that we moved. The first thing I remember as far as memories go was when my dad bought this property out in the woods, made a makeshift home for us, and it was horrible. And I was 3, I believe. And that was really kind of my first memories. And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the progression, what's going on. And I'm just going to do a little recap of my life, sort of. So it'll be interesting, I promise. If it's not interesting, just hit like and let it play out. You can take your headphones off, do whatever you want. So growing up, not only did I have the depression in my home of my mother and father, I had, and before we get going, just so you know, I loved my parents. My mother was amazing. My dad, I learned to love more as time grew on. And the older he got, the more I understood. And the more I loved him for who he was. He made a ton of mistakes. He did a lot of things wrong. But as I grew older, I grew to appreciate my father a bit. We moved around a lot, which caused me a lot of depression. So school was not very good for me. From the onset, I can remember being in school and being treated horribly by the other kids. I was a little bit chunky and very shy because we moved around a ton. And when you move into a new school, it's easy to pick on the new person, especially if they're a little fat kid. So I did go through a lot of trouble growing up. I was picked on a lot in grade school. And I remember my 3rd grade teacher very, very vividly because she was horrible and treated me horribly. And she was this old lady, and she did not like me at all. And so she made a mockery of me in class, mocking me any chance she got. It was just I was the one she singled out. She did not like me. and she made my life miserable. And so it was miserable. I was treated poorly by pretty much everybody. And my only good thing about grade school was fifth grade. I had a teacher that was amazing. His name was Mr. Gerver, and he could see how badly people treated me. And, he saw my weight problems. He saw, how even those that, claimed to be my friends were kind of mean to me. So one time we were playing kickball for PE, and one of the kids kicked the ball really far. It was a great kick. Went way over my head, and I ran after it. And of course, being the fat kid, it was bouncy, 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 and my pants started to fall down. And they started laughing and, just calling me names, and, you could just hear them. And I went and got the ball. I kicked it back to them, and then I walked off. And Mr. Gerver came and sat beside me, and he was so kind. And I remember him putting his arm around me and just saying, if I were you, I wouldn't even kick the ball back. I would have just walked away. And later on, he tried his best to get me involved, of course, but the kids were horrible. And he did send me home with a jump rope from the school locker that you could check out during recess and stuff. And because I started to jump rope and I kind of liked that, and he gave me a jump rope and just said, if you'll use this, you can have it. Just take it home with you. And it was so kind of him. And, world of misery, he was a bright spot. And it wasn't until college I actually wrote a paper on him, and I sent it to him. And he sent me back a picture of himself, as he is now. He's an older man, obviously, now. And he was so happy to hear from me, remembered me, and it was just awesome. And I felt really good writing the story I did about him. And in fact, the teacher was called Mr. Gerver, Teacher and a Friend. And I sent it to him, and he was so happy to get it. And I was so happy that, he just remembered me and was still just an awesome guy. Now, when I got to 7th grade, not only were the kids horrible as usual, and you got to remember, I am moving around school to school to school. Pretty much every year, I would go to a new school, and sometimes multiple times in a year. Sometimes I got a year in, but we went up to Oregon, and 7th grade is horrible. It's just that's like the worst grade, I swear. And there was kids that would pick on me all the time, and I finally got so fed up with it, I just left class. Right in the middle of class, I just left. And the next day I went back, and I remember the teacher, instead of coming to me and saying, hey, what happened? What was wrong? Are you okay now? What can we do to make things better? He grabbed me by the shoulder, put me up against the wall, and said, you don't ever do that. You never walk out of my class. And he was so upset at me. And, it was, at that time, I didn't want to go back to school. I hated school. Hated it with a passion. And then we moved to Albuquerque, and that was even worse. I remember coming home and just sobbing on the couch and just yelling at my mom, I'm not going back. I'm not going back. I'm not going to do it. And, it was very difficult for me. Then we moved to Salinas, California. And fortunately, it was right in time for my freshman year. And so I was able to do my entire 4 years at North Salinas High School in Salinas, California. And even though I was new, even though a lot of people were new and stuff, I was still a target. I don't know what it was about me. Obviously I was shy. I had a target on me that said, just pick on me. I'm an easy victim. Just give me what you got. And it started out horribly. Now, the only upside to starting school in California was my brother was on the basketball team, and he was good, and so everybody loved him. And so I had the basketball team and the football team. They supported each other really well, and the guys would at least be nice to me because my brother was on their team. And so that was helpful, but it didn't stop the attacks. It didn't stop, the misery, the name calling, the, just stuff that made me feel like dirt. So a funny story, while I was in high school, there was a guy that I met in my Spanish 1 class. His name was Albert, and he was as cholo gang member as you can get. I mean, at that time we didn't have dress code, and so he wore the full gang ghetto, look. He had the bandana, he had, the jewelry, he had the, the funny mustache and the beard and stuff, and he looked scary. I mean, that boy looked scary. You just you didn't let your eye meet his. But for some reason, well, in Spanish class, we got along really well because he thought it was cool that this white pudgy guy would want to learn Spanish, and he just laughed because he already knew Spanish. So he would teach me words as we went. They were not the words that you should learn. So my first Spanish words were, of course, the swear words and all the statements that you shouldn't say. But we got along really well. He liked me. And the thing is, he really liked me. He always wanted to talk to me about the stuff he did over the weekend, which, I guess I could have reported it, but, I wasn't going to do that. And he was just a nice guy that was living a horrible life. But he was a nice guy. And I remember one time I had a really bad day, and I was feeling horrible. And I came out of the doorway. I had a break, an hour off, right before lunch, which was cool because then I had like this huge lunch period. And he had the same one, or he was just skipping class, I don't know. But he comes up to me, he's like, hey man, what's up? And I'm just like, oh, I'm just having problems. And he's like, oh, what's going on? And so I told him there is a guy that is really pushing me. He's picking on me. He wants to fight. He's always, yelling at me and calling me names and just being a total jerk. And in all seriousness, Albert looked at me and he said, you want me to take care of him? And the thing is, he was serious. Like, if I had told him, yeah, it'd be great if he was gone, he would have probably ended up missing the next day. And it was funny, but I just told him, no. I'll deal with it. It's okay, but thank you. And he was just so nice to me. And I don't know if he probably was dead after a couple of years after high school, or maybe the next year, I don't know. But he was a nice guy. So that was a nice shiny spot there for me. Now, while high school was hard and I didn't have many friends, in fact, my freshman year I had no friends. And then I gained a couple. I ended high school, I can count my friends on one hand. And there was a girl that I saw, and I just thought, dang, she is really good looking. And I looked at her, she looked over at me, and she gave me a smile. And I was like, whoa, that is different. I'm not used to that. And so we were in the same grade, so we would have a couple classes. Each semester we would have a couple classes. And she was always nice to me. Her name was Blanca Moneras. And she lit up my world. Like, I was so happy to see her because I knew I was going to get a smile. I knew that somebody was going to be nice to me. it actually made my day, livable, because I knew it. If I caught her eye, I know that she would smile. And it's funny because she was my crush my entire high school days, and it was kind of like Esmeralda and the Hunchback. The Hunchback liked Esmeralda, and but she went off with the other guy. But I can honestly say that it was because of her that it was bearable for me in high school. She was so kind. She would always smile. She'd always say hi. And I remember one time we were in psychology class, and I was the teacher's aide. The teacher was Rayanne Hansen, who was a friend of my brother's, and so we kind of had that in common because she was going out with that guy, and I knew him pretty well, and so we would always talk, and so she'd let me do pretty much whatever I wanted then. And it was funny because I'd give her hall passes, she would just sign them and go. And so one time I wrote like a will type of thing, and she'd give me all her money and everything, and I handed it to her. She signed it, and she's like, "Wait a minute," and it was kind of fun. But what I would do is I would go in early. It was first period class. I would go in early and get everything she wanted done, and that way I'd have the entire hour just sit and listen to music. I spent my high school days under headphones. Like unless I was playing ball, which I'll get to in a minute, I was wearing headphones. In between class, after class, before class, sometimes during class, I would have music going. I had to just drown it all out. And it was miserable. But, in that first class, it was funny because her and her friend were in the class, and of course that was awesome because then I could get someone to say hi to me and smile for the day, and it made my day. It made my day worth it. I could actually get through the day because I knew that somebody was going to be nice to me. And her and her friend came over and were talking to me. They're like, "Oh, what are you listening to?" And at this time was when I was just getting into the harder rock and the metal. And I'm like, "Oh, well, it's called Savatage, and they're a metal group, And I put a song in to let her listen to it, and she was just like, "Oh, okay," and she's like, "Oh, why don't you listen to this?" And she pulled out hers, and it was "Seasons Change" by Expose, I believe it was. And so she said, "I'll tell you what. You take my tape, I'll take your tape, and we'll bring them back next time." And so I took home and listened to the tape. "Seasons Change" was my favorite song of it, and that song reminds me of her now. Throughout all these years, that song reminds me of her. So anytime I hear that, I think, "Hey, Blanca's song." And so she brought me my tape back, and she was so polite and so nice. She didn't say, "John, your music sucks," but I'm sure that's what she was thinking. So a few years after that, not a few years, many years after that, I always wondered whatever happened to her. When the internet finally came into play, I looked up Blanca Menares and couldn't find anything. And then I got in on Facebook, and I found some Blanca Menareses. And so I'm like, okay, I'm just going to message them. So I messaged a few Blanca Menareses, and I said, "Are you the one that went to North Salinas High School?" And I got a message back, from one of them that finally said, "Yes, I'm that one." And I said, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me." And just told her a little bit about our interactions that we had. And she's like, "Yeah, I remember you." And it's cool because we've been friends on Facebook ever since. And, it's just to have someone when you're in a world of depression be nice to you. And for that, Blanca Menares will always be on a pedestal for me. Always. I think nothing but the best of her. She is amazing. And she's also a real estate agent in Texas. So if you need a house, let me know and I'll get you in touch with her. So as time went on, I was very depressed. I hated school. I hated life. In fact, I got through high school simply because the teachers knew my brother. And a lot of times they would just give me Circle C's, which are we're going to give you a C, and if you promise to do better. And, a lot of classes, my hardest test question was, "Hey Giles, how's your brother?" And it got really tiring, instead of, "Hey John, how are you doing?" It's, "Hey Giles, how's your brother?" And it got old. But my brother was a fantastic basketball player. He deserves all the recognition he got. And, it was cool. But it did get me through high school, but it got me through high school without learning much. So I started playing basketball from the time I was a freshman on, but not school ball. Just played like church ball, pickup ball, that kind of stuff. And, I wasn't the greatest at first. Freshman year, I could tell you I stunk. But as it progressed, I got better and better because I'd play with my brother who was on the team, and then once he was done with high school, he went on to play college ball at Hartnell there. So I was able to play with him and his teammates and stuff. So I actually got a lot of training without being coached. So I did get better at that. But at the time also I started writing. I started writing, poems, just things that came to mind. Some were depressing, a lot of them were depressing. And, but as just starting out as a writer, it wasn't very good. They weren't bad, but they weren't great. And I think it was my senior year, I wrote one, and it became my favorite piece of all time that I wrote. And it's dark, and it's sad, but I loved it. So what I've done is put that into Suno and use the descriptions and descriptors of the type of music, the instruments, all that. Suno's really awesome because you can create a song, you can tell what kind of sound you want, male or female, you do the instruments, the type of music. It's amazing. And I put it to Suno, and it created a pretty good version that I really like. Now, I'm going to play that for you now, and I'll see you on the other side.
As a child, I was ridiculed, my pride and esteem ripped away, laughed at, treated cruel, rejected when I asked to play, hiding the hurt deep inside every day, suffering worse, looking, reaching to anyone there, hoping to rid myself of this curse. Now I'm grown and supposed to be a part of this society. This injustice doesn't seem right. How am I supposed to fit in? All my life I've had to fight, only to find I could not win. But through it all, I have to be a part of peace, a supporter in a society that is not for me. society. This injustice doesn't seem right. How am I supposed to fit in? All my life I've had to fight, only to find I could not win. But through it all, I have to be a part, a piece, a supporter in a society that is not for me.
So growing up with this depression, not only depression of my parents, but my own depression, my own hard time that I've had with life, I dealt a lot. My escape was video games, TV, video games, and then it turned into basketball, video games, and then it turned into basketball, video games, and writing. And so I wrote a lot of silly poems and stuff, and played a lot of basketball. And right about my senior year, right towards the end of my senior year, I started dropping a little weight. And then after my senior year, I dropped a whole lot of weight. And not only did I drop weight, but I also got really good at basketball. And so we ended up moving from California to Utah, and I immediately found a gym I could go to, and I became a gym rat. I would go there in the morning, I would play ball, lift weights, do some swimming, and then I would go back in the evening and play ball, lift some weights, and do some swimming. And I lost a lot of weight, and I got in really good shape. And you can see from the pictures that I got pretty thin. I would dare say I was close to anorexic, because I remember just being the fat kid, and I wanted that weight gone. And even when I was thin, if you see the picture of me sitting there on the couch, I was super thin. And I still, when I saw myself, it was, I'm a fat guy, and I still need to lose weight. So I would push, and I would push, and I would go to the gym hours upon hours to try to lose weight, but also to become better at basketball. And that was my life for a few years. And it was cool because I was playing some excellent ball, and I was thin, and I was feeling better about myself, but not great. Basketball provided me a place where when I stepped onto that court, I felt good about myself. And it was my escape. And so I went there a lot, hours on end. And while I was on the court, it was wonderful because I knew that I was better than everybody else out there. I went out there, I did awesome, I got the praise from the other players. But then this weird thing happened. You have to step off the court. And so I'd step off the court and realize I'm right back where I was. And the depression would kick in again. And so basketball was kind of my medication for my depression. And I did overdo it. I played ball sometimes 7 days a week, at least 6 hours a day. And that includes ball, lifting, swimming, that kind of thing. And I just couldn't stop. I just wanted to get better. I wanted to be on the court, and then I wanted to hear that praise. The greatest compliments I was ever given on the court was when I'm playing ball and I'm schooling someone, scoring them, and the other guys, the other team, one of the guys points to my defender and he's like, "Hey, could you please guard him?" And they would turn and say, "Well, you guard him." And to me, that was like, oh, that was such a great compliment. I loved it, My other greatest thing was when people would compare me to Larry Bird. And I loved that because I patterned my entire game after him. Larry Bird was my idol as far as basketball goes. And when they say, man, you play a lot like Bird, and I'm just like, thank you. That's awesome. Like I said, once you step off that court, that's gone. And the depression would sink in again. Now, while I was playing at the club there in Ogden, we moved to Provo first, and then we moved to Ogden, and I started going to the Ogden Athletic Club. And I played with a lot of really good players. There were a lot of college players there. There were some pro players there. There was one guy. See, I would get up early in the morning. We're talking, 5 a.m. because I believe they opened at 5:30. Get dressed, go to the gym for when they opened. I would go in, lift little weights, shoot around, and then go lift a little bit more, and then go see if there's anybody there to play. And while I was there was a guy named Walt, and he was, big. He was about 6'5", big 6'5" black guy, and he was good. I loved playing with him. I loved playing against him. But we started playing, and he's like, hey, let's play some one-on-one, because we're the only ones there in the morning there. And we had some really good games. And at the time, I had these BYU shorts that I would wear. And he asked me, so do you play for BYU? And to me, again, that is a great compliment. Coming from a player that he was a former Weber State player, his big happiness and claim to fame was he single-handedly beat BYU when they played him that year. And when he asked me, do you play for BYU? It's like, no, I'm going to Weber State right now, but I'm not playing. And he's like, why not? He's like, I know the coach, you want me to call him for you? And now the funny thing is I had already gotten the coach's name and number. And because I wanted to try out, I was going to. And, all I can say is depression kept me from trying. I actually made the call. He, explained, hey, I want to play for you. And he's like, well, what kind of player are you? And I'm like, anything you need. And he was like, okay, you know what? He's like, I will come and watch you play. You just call me, let me know when you're going to be there. We'll go on the night when there's good pickup games, and I'll watch you play. And I said, all right, I'll give you a call. And then I never called. That's what depression does to you. Even when you have something good happen, you can destroy it so easily. Because you don't see it. You don't go, oh my gosh, this is a way for me to get not only what I want, but this is an opportunity. And instead, I just didn't call. And that is actually one of my regrets in life. And, I don't have too many regrets, but that is one of my regrets in life. And it's not a major one, but it is a big one because, I loved basketball. I spent so much time playing ball, it's ridiculous. And I really wanted that opportunity. And I prevented myself from taking it. And so, that sucks. So, a few years into that, and my brother's getting a little concerned, my oldest brother. He started going to Weber State, about a year or two earlier than that. And one day he just comes to me. He lived in Salt Lake at the time and was commuting, going to Weber State. And he came to me, he's like, John, you need to do something. Because at the time I was, playing ball as much as I could. And I would, get a minimum wage job, obviously. And I worked at various places like Shopco and telemarketing, matrix marketing, and Aladdin's Castle, which was my favorite job. Aladdin's Castle was hands down my favorite job I've ever had. It was awesome. But he came to me and he's like, hey John, you need to do something more. He says, what I want you to do is I want you to go get your ACT, and I want you to take a class with me. And we'll just do it in the summer, just one class. I want you to try it. Now, I had never thought of even going to college. I mean, I wanted to when I was earlier. I was like, yeah, I want to go to college someday, but never gave it a real thought. And my brother just told me, he's like, you are too smart not to do something. You just got to do something different than this, And so I said, okay, fine, just to appease him, because he was my big brother, and, I love my brother, and I was just like, fine, okay, I'll do it for you. And so I took the ACT, did really well on it, surprisingly well, and surprised him, and it was just a nutrition class. That was my first experience in college. And I was so shocked. I got into the class, and it was easy. And I looked around me, I saw all the people there, and I'm like, wow, I am actually smarter than pretty much everybody here. and that's not being bragging or anything, but it was just like, okay, I'm actually there in college. I'm smarter than them. Why am I not trying? So that was the greatest kick in the butt I ever received. It was from my brother, who said, just come take one class with me. And then after that class, I tried my hand at an English class and a math class. Now, the English class was amazing. And it was the first English one-on-one. And it was just free writing. And I wrote some papers that my teacher absolutely loved. And I shocked myself at how good they were. And so I thought, okay, you know what? I want to get an English degree. I want to do this, and I want to, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I said, I'm going to go into English. And so I started doing that. So then, after successful classes, the English and the math class, which I got A's out of, I was shocked. And I gotta remember, I graduated high school with a 2.2 without even doing anything. I hated school. I did not show up half the time, and I didn't think I could do it. And the only reason I got a 2.2 is because the teachers knew my brother, and a lot of times they would give me what's called a Circle C. And that's where they're like, oh, you can make this up. And I ended up with a 2.2 in high school, and I had no plans for college. I did not want to. So after these classes, and I got A's out of them, I was blown away. I was like, okay, I can do this. I mean, I actually got an A out of a math class and an English class, in college. That's, we were up at Weber State University, and I was really excited. And so that really boosted my ego a little bit. That made me feel good. And then a couple years after that, a spot opened up, a teaching spot at the Wildcat Lanes for billiards. And so I started teaching billiards there. I wasn't the greatest pool player, but I was good. Good enough to teach it. And, so my dad and my brother were way better. But I knew how to teach it, and I could teach it, and it was great. And I found something there, and that is that even when you're going through depression, even when you have, all the bad stuff happening, if you give of yourself, it helps you feel better. It does. And so I loved going to my classes. I loved my students. Absolutely loved my students. And it really helped, because teaching there, I got a tuition break. And so I was able to get a lot of my tuition paid, and, got a job at the school. That was helpful. And it was really awesome, because I got to meet some amazing people. In fact, I have quite a few friends on Facebook still that I met in my classes. And it's amazing. I love them. They were fantastic. And I made some amazing friends, over these. I taught for 16 years and made some amazing friends. And the thing I loved about it is that it did pull me out of my depression for that time. I have found that keeping yourself busy does help because it does pull you out of depression. And so while I was in class, I loved it because I was pulled out of my depression and just had to focus on them. They were my focus. And it was awesome because every semester I had a couple students that really needed some guidance, really needed some help in life. And I don't know what it is about me. I guess I have a sign on my forehead that says, "Hey, I'm your counselor." And that's okay because I was able to help a lot of people. Able to help somebody, like I said, at least a couple people every single semester. And that was uplifting and was a reward for me. I loved it. Now, another benefit to teaching the billiards classes, which I already touched on, but it's the fact that it helped you pay your tuition. But after I got done with my English degree, and it took me a few years to finish because I switched majors 4 times. And I guess that's what you get for not, planning out your long-term life strategy. But it was okay because I hated school. Got to college, I loved it. And so I started with English. I went to psychology and then networking. I was actually going to get a networking degree. And then I went back to English and then finished it. And then I got into my master's program. And I was so excited when I got into my master's program because that was another, a big positive in my life. Because here I graduated with about a 3.8, which was unheard of for me. Absolutely unheard of. And when I went to apply for the master's program, the dean of the program knew me, and he was excited. He was like, "Yeah, you're a perfect fit." He's like, "So I'm just letting you in." He told me, "Don't even worry about taking the GRE right now. Like, you don't need it. You really only need it if you switch schools because you're good." And I liked that. So I didn't have to take another test. But got into the program and I was excited. I mean, I was riding high. Not only was I playing some dang good ball, I was playing fantastic ball. I never stopped playing ball until a little bit later here. But I had finished my degree, graduated, and I was the first of all my siblings to get into a master's program. I was so excited for that. I was so proud of myself for that. And got into the master's program, and earlier that year, before I got in, I had this weird thing happen the spring before that, and my fingers, the tips of my fingers, all went numb, and both of my feet went a little bit numb. I didn't think much of it, and just went on with my day. And went back to playing ball, and it was hard at first because my feet were a little bit numb, and I just worked through it, and it was fine. Got into my master's program, and I instantly started failing my classes. My one of my literature classes, I had a instructor a professor that I had before. And he was excited to have me because he loved my work. And my work was horrible. And I missed citations. I missed, everything that needed to be in there wasn't there. And he just comes to me, he's like, "Well, what's going on? Why you missed this and this, so let's get on it." And my work was just steadily going down. And he just said, "Maybe you're burnt out, from the previous stuff. So why don't you take a break and then come back re-energized and, we'll start again." And so I switched. I said, "You know what? I'll go back to psychology because I only had like 3 classes to finish my psychology degree. So I went in and I took a class called Theories of Personality, and that is a class of nothing but names, dates, and you match those names and dates to the theories. And the teacher, I loved him. He was an amazing teacher, hard as nails, but I had had him before for my other psychology classes and aced his classes. I wasn't too worried about it. And I get to the tests, and my mind just goes blank. And I end up getting about a 50% on the test, which is so weird. You know, here I graduated with such good grades, and then this happens. And end up failing the class, which surprised the teacher, you know, because I knew him, talked to him a lot, and he's like, yeah, just retake the class, you know, you're good. And, you know, you're having a hard time, it's okay. You know, just retake the class. So I retook the class. And I failed it again with almost the exact same grade. And I remember after that class was over, my teacher came to me and he just said, Giles, what the hell is wrong with you? And I just said, I don't know. You know, and he said, well, you need to find out. He says, what I want you to do is take the class again. I'll combine all your best test scores and see if we can get you a passing grade, but you got to figure out what's going on. And so I took the class again, and this time I did a little bit better, and he gave me a C. And which a C is, for someone who had gotten almost straight A's, that was an absolute blow to me. You know, failing the class was also a blow, obviously, but to get a C. And so then it wasn't until I met Jennifer that I had a period where I lost my legs. I could barely walk. You know, I was basically a paraplegic with my legs gone. And, you know, she actually was in my class, my pool class, and she didn't say anything. You know, she was just like, okay, you know, and we would talk and stuff. And then I had another flare-up where I would, my arms and both my legs kind of went. And then one time I was over at her house, and my left arm, left leg, my face, all the way down to here went numb, like you're at a dentist. And she said, okay, that's enough. We're getting you to the doctor. And I just said, I can't afford to go to a doctor. And she just looked at me like I was an idiot and said, we will get you to the doctor. There are programs that can help. Don't worry. So she helped me get all the paperwork done that I needed. Got the, you know, the poor people stuff, and got me into a doctor. And because I qualified as a poor person, because I was and am. And so she took me to the doctor, and they did scans and stuff. And then I was referred to a specialist, and turns out I have MS. And, you know, I would have flare-ups where my legs would go bad, and then I would get most of it back, but still I'd lose a portion of my control in my legs. Like my fingertips still feel like there's tape on them. And that was hard at first, because when the hand went out, you know, typing is the one skill I'm a really good typer. And, you know, I couldn't feel the keys. So I was typing, you know, chicken back type of thing, you know, like most of the normal people. But she got me to the doctor and found out, you know, that I have MS. And he also had this thing. He said, I need to show you something. And he pulled up a scan. And I have a lesion on my brain right on the name recall center. I don't know exactly where it is, but, you know, just point to my head. And it's right under the name recall center, which is why new information to me is extremely difficult. Like, if I have to learn a new name, that's going to take me months of dealing with that person. If I remember a new number, like a new phone number or something, that's going to take me months. And so that's why I was doing so bad in my classes. I just couldn't absorb any new information. It wasn't soaking in, so to speak. And that was hard for me. That was a big blow because not only did I end my scholastic career, that ended, but then as I progressed and I had more flare-ups and stuff, my ball days were over. And that was really hard for me because two of the things that I love most, was my education that I was getting and basketball. And both were taken from me, through this disease. MS is horrible, if you haven't figured that out yet. And so that adds to the depression. And then, I was fortunate enough to get on disability, which then I was only on it for a couple years, and I was booted off. And I guess that's a common thread with the previous 4 years, with people getting kicked off of disability and then being told you owe them. And I guess it's about a 30% ratio of people that were kicked off like I was, when there wasn't a reason to be. And so I'm going to be going through that struggle of trying to get back on again. And that's a hard one. That is a massive blow to me because, I ended up with nothing, and that's hard. So with everything that I had been going through all my life, not only my childhood traumas and such, and there are events that I don't talk about, and but through my events, through childhood into adulthood, with the depression, and then to have you suddenly develop a incurable disease that takes away your ability to do the things you love. And for me, it was basketball and my schooling. Those are my two greatest loves. I loved playing ball and I loved being in school. And my goal was to get my master's and then possibly get my doctorate, but I wanted to end up teaching English either at a junior college or a university. But that is not to be. So there have been positive points in my life. There have been good things that have happened. My relationship with my father got much better as he got older. And about 10 years before he passed away, we actually, I actually loved my dad. And that was a big thing for me. That was a hard one to get to. It took me years to get there. But at the end, we had a really good relationship. And I am grateful for that. I always had a great relationship with my mom. And so that was always a good thing. Now, having been diagnosed with major depression, diagnosed with PTSD, they tried me on medications, and for some reason, my body reacts so weird to medication. Every medication that I would take, they would give me, if you looked at what are the bad side effects of it, I would get those. And it was every one of them. Of course, they tried me on Prozac first, and that went over like a lead brick, because now they have a warning on it. You'll notice if you take Prozac or somebody that does look at their bottle, it'll say caution for manic depressants, bipolars, that kind of thing. So while I don't have the bipolar instincts, I don't have the aggression like my father had, that kind of thing. I do have it in my blood. And so when they put me on Prozac, that people laugh because I'm probably one of the most calm people that you'll ever meet. I'm calm. I don't fly off the handle a lot. And so it's kind of weird that the bipolar blood in me would cause the effects on the medication, even though I don't have the symptoms. It's weird. But so I went through, I think, about 11 or 12 medications trying to find an antidepressant that I could take. Nothing worked. But trying to find a medication, I told my doctor I'm still open to them. But everything that I took had a negative side effect. They were pretty bad. But, I can say that I am a big believer in both counseling, psychiatric help, that kind of thing, and medication. I believe that both can work for people. The counseling side can work if they're competent. Finding a competent counselor nowadays is getting harder and harder. But if you can find a good one, when I was diagnosed, they immediately told me you should find a counselor. And I was like, why? They're like, well, this is a life-changing disease. It's incurable. You can never get rid of it. You're going to feel depressed at times. The services will provide a counselor. We highly suggest that you get one. So I said, okay, I'll do it. So I went, and I did not like my counselor, and I said, I want somebody else. So they gave me somebody else, and I did not like him. They gave me another person, and the one they gave me, her name is Connie, and she was amazing. And, she wasn't, like the first guy, just intellectually was not on a level where I could relate to him. The second guy tried so hard to be buddy-buddy, talk sports and all that stuff instead of using the time to talk about my problems. And Connie came in, and she was amazing. She was very intelligent, just amazing. She could relate with me, she could talk to me, and she was fantastic. And so she actually helped me with my disability. She helped me with, getting all the resources that I could use for me, and she was there. All I had to do was call. And so that part of the counseling is great. Now, if we just find the medication that'll work, who knows? But, and this surprises people, because they'll ask me, well, if it's so bad, how come you're always happy? You're always, like, when I would go into class, I'm always happy. When I would talk to people, I'm always happy. And this is where I'm going to get to the next part of what I'm talking about. And that is that I find that I can get through it, I can deal with it because of my faith. At a young age, I was about 16, that I, how do you say, found Jesus. I found religion, and it gave me a purpose. It gave me a hope for what's beyond this. It gave me someone to turn to, someone to lay my troubles down in front of and say, God, please help me. And I have found great comfort in that. Great comfort in the knowledge that God lives. Great comfort in the fact that this life is not all there is. That when we get to the other side, we're going to be judged according to our works. What did you do with your life? Did you help people around you? We're going to be judged by our works. And my faith has been a huge part of that. In case you're wondering, I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, otherwise known as Mormons or LDS, by many different names, I guess, and that's okay. And And I'm not telling you find Jesus, be a Mormon. What I'm telling you is just to find Jesus, wherever you're at. I don't care what religion you go to. Listen, learn of the Savior. And if you do that, it's not going to cure your life. It's not going to make your life amazingly happy. You're not going to go, oh, I'm miserable, I'm happy. But if you're already happy, you will be happier. If you are miserable and depressed, like I was, it'll take you that step up. And it won't get rid of the darkness, but you'll have a light to shine in the darkness. And that is the most valuable thing that you can have in this world. And so I would urge you, no matter where you're at, learn of the Savior. Learn that there is much more to life than just this life, but that we will be judged by what we do in this life. And so learn. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to end with a song I made when I was in kind of a fit of depression, but, a little bit angry, a little bit depressed. So I made a song, and I thought it turned out really good. I really like it, so I'll end with it. If you could, give me a like, watch the whole video through, hopefully, and let me know what you think. Leave me a comment down below, let me know what you think. And I'll get back to my usual, video games, making stupid songs, that kind of stuff. But I just wanted to make a video about myself and the depression and, why it is and how I get through it. And so let me know if you have any questions, comments, anything like that. Just write them down below. And I will talk to you later. Bye.
I got plenty of regrets on what I was before. Plenty of dreams of what life had in store. Watching my world crumble each day, I sat there wondering why it went this way. I had no opportunities handed to me, no chance, no breaks to become what I wanted to be. Stomp, stomp, crush, crush, all excuse, so just shut up. Be grateful for what you don't have, what was taken away. Don't be upset, just shut up and go away. Now I look around and I'm stuck at the back, finding every day was just constant attacks. Back in grade school, the victim was blamed, and got a junior high and found it the same. It wasn't until high school when I found my voice. By that time it was too late, sorry boy, you got no choice. Stomp, stomp, crush, crush, all excuse, so just shut up. Be grateful for what you don't have, what was taken away. Don't be upset, just shut up and go away. Like scrambling mice to get up a wall, you can't make it if you don't stand tall. Battle like you care, but don't care too much. Step on others' faces to claim it all. I believe in a higher purpose, but opportunities recall. If you don't fit the bill, you get no chance at all. Don't complain, don't feel you're owed a thing. I got what I got by stepping on your face, and you can do the